All right, everyone, welcome back to the war discussion series. As I said before, this is an abstract discussion on planning, not a full-blown planning war. Thank your officers for the work they do, because this takes a lot of work. And if you hear any kid cartoons or kid voices, just know I am doing this with children around. Yeah. All right, so first things first, we're going to take a look at bands. Ghost, Human Torch, and Quake are banned. This is the first time I've seen, it's only the second war. First time I've seen Quake banned. She is a 5-star, so didn't expect to see her, but it is what it is. Our boss is Domino. Kind of surprised by this boss. There's not really anything super challenging about it besides avoiding evade and taking crit failure damage. But using Warlock, using Silver Centurion, using G99 ramped, using Mysterio rank 3, even a Corvus if you can rank them. Just gonna slaughter her here. Mysterio and Archangel would have the most, or the easiest time, since they won't have their ability accuracy reduced. However, Archangel will still take crit failure. Looking at the power gain node here, Mangog, this is an S99 fight, followed by a Magic fight, followed by maybe even a Mr. Fantastic or Mr. Negative fight. So this is not a bad node at all. Yellow Jacket here, nothing too problematic about here. Bring a Shrug champion like Mole Man or Kingpin or Shang, just in case you get tagged by a special attack and you need to get rid of the power stings. It's really just managing the limber and the high ground, there it is, throughout the fight. Maybe even bring a White Magneto pre-fight if you want to completely ignore limber. Long shot here, tricky. I would suggest Apocalypse, since no debuffs will be shrugged, and have him with suicides and get him a fight earlier so he's bleed immune leading into this fight, and just alternate your combo and dodge that SB1. The blocked hits on the basics aren't that bad, but if you block an SB1, it can be pretty bad. So outside of Apocalypse, White Magneto pre-fight, and a bleed immune champ or an incinerate immune champ. That the power gain here is going to be pretty crazy if you go into this fight without a White Magneto pre-fight or someone who doesn't get their debuff shrugged. So White Magneto pre-fight at least if you're not using Apocalypse, and then a low debuff champion. You can use Mole Man here for Black Widow on Stun Reflect. Obviously, if you use a Poison champ or an Incinerate champ, it's going to make it a little bit easier. All you have to do is play around the evade. SB1's really hard to retaliate, so you're going to be block baiting a lot of heavy attacks. So, but Mole Man's going to probably have one of the easiest times next to Fury or not really Shang, but someone else who just prevents evade like a Corvus. Moving on to the Rage Mini, Annihilus here. Clairvoyant takes care of this pretty well. Doom can do it. You just have to look out for big nullifiers or people that actually rely only on nullify and the return policy. I'm sure Diablo might even work here pretty well. But Claire, in my opinion, would have the easiest because of buff immunity. America Chavez, you can use Rolk here. That's probably my number one pick for who I'd use here. Yellow Jacket probably can do this with the energy resistance. You just don't hit during the poison phase. So yeah, this one, not many counters to her, but Rolk, since he's not banned, does very, very well. Guardian, you guys saw me use Black Widow here. Clairvoyant, you could even use Magneto, that came up. I used Venom Pool, so a couple options here for Guardian. All right, going into section 2. Silver Surfer here. You've seen me take a Man-Thing. I've seen Black Widow take this in Plague Curse with a Power Start 1 and Suicides. She's got a high hit combo, and she'll power drain him to keep him at SB1. Path 1, nothing crazy about it. You could use Warlock there. You could even use Magneto for Infinity War Iron Man and use Warlock for Hulk. There's not much going on there. Path 2, I would recommend using Apocalypse. he's just going to end up building his immunity to disorient, and then those two champions aren't a problem as far as going through strike counter, and then Elsa's kind of a throwaway. She doesn't gain an armor up, so you don't have to worry about any bleeds there. Just in case they place with suicide, send a mutant. Maw here, you could use Spider-Man 2099. He doesn't gain buffs, so EMP's gone. If you do use another Maw counter, like let's say Void or Mr. Negative, just send an Odin pre-fight for shock resistance if you can. Could even use Doom there and just constantly knock him down the entire fight, and Doom's shock resistant. So not really too problematic with where Maw is at. Okay, moving on to path 4. This screams Kingpin or Mole Man. They'll be unblockable the entire fight. Kingpin can actually just cycle his SP2s with this path, especially on Null. So Null may be unblockable the whole time, but Kingpins just get to SP2, it's game over. Path 5 kind of screams Apocalypse here. You got two skill champs that shrug debuffs, and Apocalypse will just kind of override that. Path 6 here, this one is surprisingly tricky sometimes. Here, Super Scroll's not too bad of an issue. He's not going to gain more than the 1 prowess. So you could use any counter here like Archangel or any big nullifier that's just going to overpower him. I would be careful with the nullifier, so maybe use Claire and it'll prevent instead of nullify, because he'll get a lot of power gain from the nullifying. It's Apocalypse here that's kind of tricky, especially with Ghost out. I think I'd recommend Magic and just beat him to the punch and lock him down the best you can and block baiting heavies to get there instead of parry, because he should start with 3 prowess buffs, and then every blocked hit is just going to up it. So you either have to dex everything or, lock him down. The other option, you could lock him down with Nebula. You could lock him down with, or you could avoid the unblockable with Miles. Kitty Pryde here, probably just use a counter like Guardian, G99, and Silver Centurion since they don't crit. Silver Centurion at least has a slow, so you could play this fight all the way to SP3 instead of doing a parry heavy and get a longer slow debuff. Or you could just use someone who nullifies. She's unduped, so she's not going to gain a ton of power from using a miss counter. Penny here, we sent to Quake. Magneto does well too, just invulnerability boost, parry heavy to SP3, and it's over. Really just have an auto block counter here to Overseer. So Fury, Mole Man, Kingpin. Kingpin's not a counter for that, but at least he can shrug the stun if he gets stunned. So it's really just look out for auto block here with Hulk. Storm, I've taken that with Claire, I've taken that with Doom. Both are kind of sketch. Doom was kind of the safest. Use a nullifier or like someone who prevents buffs, or just use like a Warlock that's unduped. And he'll kind of cancel out the rich get richer from this node, since they'll have the same number of unique buffs pretty much through the entire fight until you trigger Dex, then Warlock is overpowering it. He'll probably end it in 2 SP2s with suicides, and you won't even have to worry about it. Here, Path 9, kind of tricky. I wouldn't use Nebula because she doesn't have an armor up for Havoc. I would probably use Silver Centurion or any of the tech champions with armor up buffs, and just give them an Odin pre-fight for the shock resistance, and then just play Fury as smart as you can. If your Apocalypse already has bleed immunity, maybe send Apocalypse with one of those techs down this path, and Apocalypse takes Fury. You just have to be smart about when you see a shock debuff on you. Unfortunately, the timer's not there. I've been told that they're probably fixing it, but it would make it a lot easier. Here, I'd probably use Apocalypse too, just because of the disorient, so you can build that disorient immunity. Outside of that, it's just trying to avoid block hits, which is going to be difficult when he goes into Wrath. Maybe Archangel and just try and nuke it. Well, no, because of window opportunity. So, yeah, Sasquatch there is probably going to be somewhat of a pain. White Magneto here, I heard Nimrod works pretty well. Probably going to want another kind of evade counter. That's tough. Probably use Claire just to deal with the buffs, and then just spamming SB2. Parry heavy probably with her is going to be the best while in bleed, and either land SB2s or drop SB3 for bigger damage. So you probably just have to play with Mixmaster for this. Mojo here, Spider-Man 2099, easy first go-to. Mr. Negative as a second, and then Archangel and just parry heavy and nuke it. So Mojo here is not really a pain at all. Okay, moving on to section 1. Path 1, nothing too crazy. Again, probably can use Apocalypse and have Resonate on so that you can counter Tiger is unblockable. Path 2 here, I used Magneto for Green Goblin. You can use Void with Mr. Fantastic. Just be aware, power struggle's probably going to fall short due to Cunning, but Nova's not a problem here. Just use a Nova counter. So Claire would work, Doom would work, stick into the strike counter rotation. Any Mystic really will work. And then here you can probably use Cosmic Ghost Rider and try to nuke it before it's ever a problem. Plus he's got a duped Cosmic Ghost Rider, would prevent the static defense from ever being an issue. But he also has armor break, so once you get to your first SB2, it's probably not an issue at all as well. Another option would probably be like Terrax, but less common of an attack option. Man-Thing here, kind of tricky. Maybe say White Magneto pre-fight and Odin Shock with Spider-Man 2099. But that's hard to say. Maybe a Poison Immune with White Magneto pre-fight. The shock's going to be the combo Poison and Shock are just going to be interesting. Path 4 here, Mole Man, Kingpin, and just wreck it, going through the Furies. I know Kingpin just wrecks and Mole Man wreck that Terrax. Path 5 here, use a Doom counter, and I'd probably build to SB3, heavy him, and then drop the SB3. So this one kind of tricky just because most of the Doom counters have Petrify, and you want that Petrify for the aura to be gone. So I can see where this would be somewhat of a problematic node, but who knows? An SB3 from S99 or Negative or I-Bomb might just finish it. I-Bomb might be the best, actually, because he at least gets that acid burn off of the SB3 and some heals. But Airwalker here, use any Mystic counter to this Doom, Claire, be pretty easy. Here, use a skill chant. You can probably run through this Void with Kingpin, Mole Man, Shang. I think I took it with Shang one time in the off season, and then just be mindful here. This has power focus too. So you can probably just keep him from throwing SB2 until you've got him all the way against the wall and the prowess is low, and then let him throw SB2 and then wait out the unstoppable. Or use a nullifier. This path 7 here, this Dragon Man can be tricky. Probably maybe use Doom and just SB3 nuke him, or use Spider-Man 2099, who can reverse the power game pretty well pretty soon, especially with the anti-venom synergy. And then Red Magneto here, it's vivified, so just be mindful that he's going to gain a lot of power and you're going to have a lot of specials. So maybe use a magic here and just lock him up and never... Well, no, you can't because of vivified. But yeah, maybe it's just Bait City. Tigra might be a good option. Shoot, who else? Really, it's just anyone, just not a metal champ, and pay attention to vivified. Arcus here, nothing special. Just watch. I mean, it's really just nothing special. Use Doom, use Claire. Path 9 here, Nimrod. I'd probably just still use Rulk along this path and just Suicide's SB3 and then game over. Even for Wasp here, just pay attention to when she's evading. You should be pretty good. So yeah, that's War 2. Let's go ahead and see how this plays out. I hope you guys enjoyed it and helped. I will catch you guys at the next one.